Hi, I'm Jarek.
Hi, I'm Lorna.
We're going on a journey to discover the legacy of the American Legion
And how that history of the Legion is shaping the vision for our future. The preparedness movement prehistory of volunteers, guided by alumni of Plattsburgh, New York, Citizens Military Training Camp, set the stage for the American Legion to establish its founding purpose, mission, and vision. In late January of 1919, 4 line officers of the American Expeditionary Forces, Lieutenant Colonels Theodore Roosevelt Jr., George A. White, William Donovan, and Eric Fisher Wood met in Paris to discuss the recent death of former President Theodore Roosevelt, their imminent mustering out of service, the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, and what might happen at home when nearly 2 million newly discharged combat veterans, many sick, disabled, gassed, and shell-shocked, return to civilian lives in their home communities. The following month, Roosevelt Jr. convinced General John Blackjack Pershing, commander of the American Expeditionary Forces, the AEF, that a morale conference was needed for the troops still stuck in Europe waiting to go home. Roosevelt Jr. called another meeting in Paris, this time 20 officers, 9 of whom had trained in Plattsburgh, to plan the conference. They agreed that enlisted personnel should be invited.
Well, no one really knows how many members of the AEF attended the American Legion's formative Paris caucus, March 15th through 17th of 1919. Organizers expected around 300. Some estimated more than 1,000 attended. The Paris caucus produced a temporary name for the organization. It's one that would later become permanent, along with membership criteria and draft language for the preamble to a constitution.
We, the members of the military and naval services of the United States of America in the Great War, desiring to perpetuate the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy for which we have fought, to inculcate the duty and obligation of the citizen to the state, to preserve the history and incidents of our participation in the war, and to cement the ties of comradeship formed in service, do propose to found and establish an association.
The 8 months following the Paris caucus of the American Legion were nothing short of remarkable. At the St. Louis caucus, May 8 through 10, 1919, delegates approved a draft constitution and preamble, selected former Dallas Mayor Henry D. Lindsley as chairman until a national commander could be elected at the National Convention in November. At the St. Louis caucus, they chose Minneapolis as the first national convention city. Committees were assembled, and dramatically, Theodore Roosevelt Jr. declined nomination from the floor that he be made the first national leader of the new American Legion. He graciously declined because he didn't want the organization to be, or appear, politicized in any way.
I want the country at large to get the correct impression of this meeting here. We are gathered together for a very high purpose. I want every American through the length and breadth of this land to realize that there is not a man in this caucus who is seeking anything for himself personally, but that he is simply working for the good of the entire situation. Now, gentlemen, it is my absolute determination to withdraw myself.
Roosevelt Jr. and other Plattsburgh alumni took out loans to finance the early American Legion. Local posts began applying for charters immediately after the St. Louis caucus. By the end of the American Legion's first year, more than 5,400 local posts would be chartered. On September 16, 1919, Congress federally chartered the American Legion, giving the organization a green light to formally adopt a constitution and bylaws. Powers and authorities were outlined, membership criteria, exclusive naming and branding rights were established. Also written into the charter was a requirement that the organization shall be non-political and, as an organization, shall not promote the candidacy of any person seeking public office.
By the time of the first National Convention, November 10th through 12th of 1919, membership in the American Legion had soared to more than 684,000, approximately 15,000 of whom marched in the first American Legion National Convention parade. And if it had not been 11 degrees and snowing during that parade, Minneapolis might have won the bid to become permanent home of American Legion National Headquarters. Indianapolis was chosen instead, and Franklin D'Allier of Pennsylvania was elected first national commander.
8 months after the initial Paris caucus, the American Legion had gone from an unfunded idea in Paris to a national movement.
And so was born that would become the nation's largest veterans organization. Through individual obligation to community, state, and nation, the American Legion would continue growing throughout the country and around the world, abiding by the preamble to its Constitution as a mission statement.
For God and country.
For God and country. For God and country, we associate ourselves together for the following purposes.
To uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
To maintain law and order.
To foster and perpetuate a 100% Americanism.
To preserve the memories and incidents of our associations in the Great Wars.
To inculcate a sense of individual obligation to the community, state, and nation.
To combat the autocracy of both the classes and the masses.
To make right the master of might.
To promote peace and goodwill on earth.
To safeguard and transmit to posterity the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy.
To consecrate and sanctify our comradeship by our devotion to mutual helpfulness.
By our devotion to mutual helpfulness.
The founding vision of the American Legion would go on to establish programs, services, and legislative accomplishments that truly strengthened America over the organization's first century.
And one other accomplishment that stands apart from all the rest. A GI Bill of Rights that transformed America and the world forever. And it continues to do so for new generations of veterans and their families.